Cowboy football takes down Texas Tech. Bedlam soccer went down to the wire in Norman. And we spotlight an international tennis player that has become the heart and soul of OSU tennis. All that and more this week on the Poke Report. Hello and welcome to week 3 of the Poke Report. I'm Alex Dustin.
And I'm Asa Lucas. We are outside of the Greenwood Tennis Center. We have a great week show for you. You're going to want to watch this one. Cowboys had a nail biter in Stillwater last week. Our very own Bo Smith was there to give us the football recap.
The fast-paced offense is back in the Big 12. A Wild West shootout broke out in Boone Pickens Stadium Saturday afternoon. The Red Raiders would strike first with a 27-yard touchdown pass. The Cowboys would strike back in just 29 seconds of play with a pass of their own. Both teams would go back and forth, trading blows in the first quarter. Texas Tech would take a 24-20 lead going into the halftime break. The Cowboy defense was struggling in the first half with Texas Tech quarterback Beharon Morton.
I had heard that. I heard this summer that they had a kid that could throw it around, sling it pretty good, and obviously that's who it was. Good player.
I don't think we expected that quarterback to play. I don't think, I think they did a lot of quick game, which was hard for us. A lot of times our rushes, we were beating the guys, but we weren't getting to the quarterback, so I think that kind of played into it.
After the break, the Cowboy defense would only give up one touchdown in the second half. After that, the Cowboys would shut the Red Raiders out for the rest of the game. They would also get an interception late in the third quarter. The Cowboys would settle for a field goal to take a 3-point lead. That would help shift the momentum in the Cowboys' favor.
Yeah, it was, I think that it was just something that, we all understood had to happen.
The Cowboys would get a late touchdown by Dominique Richardson, being pushed in the end zone by his O-line. Ben Kapinski would have a huge sack in the fourth quarter on the Red Raiders' last drive to help seal the win for the Cowboys. The Cowboys would come out on top 41-31. The next opponent will be the TCU Horned Frogs in Fort Worth this Saturday at 2:30 p.m. It will be a battle of the last two undefeated teams in the Big 12. For the Poke Report, I'm Bo Smith.
Thanks, Bo. The Cowboys are 5-0 for their second straight year and have a home game winning streak now of 12 games. Since we're speaking of Big 12 action, we're going to hand it off to Jace Andrews, our Big 12 expert, and he's going to tell us all about where the Cowboys lie in the Big 12.
Thanks, Alex and Asa. The Big 12 continues to surprise everyone each week, and we saw more of the same this past weekend. Let's get right into it, starting up in Lawrence, Kansas, where the 19th-ranked Jayhawks take on the 17th-ranked Horned Frogs. Skipping straight ahead to the later part of the second quarter, TCU up 3, but Kansas threatening at the 1-yard line when the ball pops out of Jalen Daniels' hands. Horned Frogs recover at the 1 and drive 99 yards down the field to put themselves up 10 now. Kansas gets a field goal before we head into half with the score 10-3 Horned Frogs. This is where the scoring started. Kansas scores on their first possession, and then back and forth we go with each team putting the ball in the end zone multiple times. But this battle comes to a head when Quentin Johnston makes a spectacular over-the-shoulder catch, and TCU now up a touchdown late in this one. Kansas one last shot under a minute to go, and the Jayhawks cannot get it done as they finally put a game into the loss column. Going down to the Cotton Bowl now, where Texas and Oklahoma will battle it out in the Red River rivalry. Quinn Ewers back on the field for Texas, and he did not disappoint. Late second quarter, Longhorns already up 21 when Ewers finds Jatavion Sanders in the seam for a 24-yard touchdown. The Longhorns rout the Sooners 49-0. Taking a look into the stat sheet, OU fans, you might want to look away. Quinn Ewers goes for 289 yards passing with 4 touchdowns, and the Sooners are only able to muster 39 passing yards total, and as a team, only 195 yards. Moving on to the other 2 games in the Big 12, Kansas State gets the victory and aims to keep themselves atop the conference, and of course, as we saw, our Cowboys get the win against Tech here at home. Looking ahead, the Cowboys have 2 tough matchups against TCU and Texas, and besides our Cowboys, I would say the Horned Frogs and the Longhorns Well, they're at the top of the Big 12 right now with the way they're playing. And the Cowboys will take on the Horned Frogs this week in Amon G. Carter Stadium. And comparing the two QBs, I gotta say, they look pretty similar. Sanders has a slight edge on Max Duggan in terms of yardage and passing touchdowns, but the big difference in Duggan is the completion percentage. Duggan sits at 73%, while Sanders is at 62%. This game is going to be a big deal for a lot of Cowboys fans, given that Oklahoma State has only 4 wins all time in Amon G. Carter. My prediction for this game is a 49-44 victory for OSU, as they will come out on top. Now, looking at the rest of the Big 12, my predictions this week, I got Texas pulling the win over Iowa State, as I think with Ewers back, Texas is looking very, very scary, and they're going to come into the game here at Boone Pickens against OSU off a win. In the OU-Kansas game, I got to go with the Jayhawks, as I think with or without Jalen Daniels, they will bounce back and OU will drop to 0-4 in the Big 12. Alex, Asa, what are y'all thinking for this weekend's games?
Appreciate it, Jace. You're always looking good on the camera.
Asa, it is now time for us to make our predictions, and we said we'd be keeping track of those. Last week, I was victorious. I went 2 for 3. You went 1 for 2. Unfortunately, that's what you get for picking the Sooners.
You're right. You're right.
It's a new week, another round of predictions. Starting off with the Kansas Jayhawks down in Norman. Asa, who do you have winning this matchup?
Well, I actually, since Dylan Gabriel's coming back, I have the Sooners winning this one. And you like that backup quarterback for Kansas, Mr. Bean. He's going to be turned into Bean Dip down in Norman.
Well, we don't know. If you guys have been following the Jayhawks on social media or any sort of trending thing about Kansas, some say that Jason Bean will be the starting quarterback. Others say he's not going to be. So we don't know what's happening up in Lawrence, but we'll see on Saturday when they beat the Sooners. Moving on down to the Texas Longhorns. They are taking on the Iowa State Cyclones at home in Austin. Asa?
Well, Longhorns right now are hot, and you want to go with the hot team. Quinn Ewers makes Texas look like a top 10 contender. I'm going with the Longhorns at home.
I'm going to go with Texas as well. They are coming off of that big 49-0 win over OU. They have the momentum, they have the power, and they have the quarterback to bring them to victory. Now, going back up to Dallas, our own OSU Cowboys are taking on the TCU Horned Frogs in Fort Worth. Asa, who do you have winning and score prediction? Okay,
so this one's not going to be a shocker at who I'm picking. You got to go with the Cowboys. It's going to be a barn burner down in Fort Worth, but they're going to win 45-42, last-second field goal for the win.
Okay, I have a pretty similar score margin, but a little lower. I have the Cowboys winning 35-31. I agree it's going to be a close game down to the wire, but I think our Cowboys will come out on top. So we'll have to see how we do next week. In case you missed it, OSU welcomed in another round of Cowboys and Cowgirls into its Hall of Honor a couple weeks ago. One of those elite athletes recognized is goalkeeper A.D. Franch. Franch still holds several records she set during her time in Stillwater from 2009 to 2011. These include career clean sheets and goals against average. She is the most decorated athlete in Cowgirls soccer history. Franch was honored at the Cowgirls match against Mercer with a highlight reel and a standing ovation from Neil Patterson Stadium. While being inducted into such a prestigious club was amazing, Franch also enjoyed showing her family around her old stomping ground.
It's exciting to see where the program has continued to go and grow, and just be back home away from home.
Franch is the current goalkeeper for the KC Current, the NWSL team in Kansas City. She's a 2-time NWSL Goalkeeper of the Year and was drafted first round in 2013. The Current just figured out the regular season and are starting playoffs on Sunday in Houston. While Franch is focused on the postseason with her team, the 2023 World Cup is on her mind as well.
You just hope that the work that you do on a regular basis will put you in a situation to prepare you to be in more situations to have an opportunity to make those teams and make those rosters.
Coming up, moving from one keeper to another, Derek Mendes will give us the insight into one Cowgirls star. That and more coming up on the Poke Report.
We would design something, it was set on the counter, and people was either, if enough of them said, this isn't it never made to the line. Dad was excited that they're all original. They were all designed on Mom's kitchen table, and it gets in your blood after a while.
We're very happy that Pamela and Michael have taken over the business and kept the family going.
We took the business over in 2017. When we found that it was available, we wanted to keep the legacy of family alive, but it was also incredible products that deserved to be a part of Made in Oklahoma's story. We were a part of Made in Oklahoma years ago. And so it kind of grew as Made in Oklahoma grew.
Oklahoma is ingrained into everything that we did. We've been here most of our life. That's what we entailed our whole business on, was the Oklahoma homegrown feeling.
Pecans are staple to Oklahoma. In fact, many of our native pecans come from trees that are older than Oklahoma statehood.
My father's the one that got us started into the pecan picking. I was probably 10 or 12 years old, and we started off with one little mechanical picker that you pulled behind a four-wheeler. Then we'd go home at night and we'd clean them on a TV tray. I guess watching my dad work hard when we were young, and people started trusting him and getting more and more groves, we just kept growing.
Being a relatively new and fresh company, we get to sit in the same room with people who have been a part of the Oklahoma economy for decades.
It's opened a lot of doors. It's gave us quite a bit of exposure, and I think people, will take a small company like us a little more serious. We're just going to continue growing as long as our community lets us and our customers keep on buying, and we'll see where it takes us.
Ace in the Bowl salsa started many, many years ago. I was trying to find a recipe to take to a family gathering, and so I started messing around with different recipes, and I took a little bit from here and a little bit from there, and I came up with a salsa that is truly unique. Ace in the Bowl salsa is an olive oil based salsa with tomatoes, green chilies, green onions, and black olives. There's no sugar added, it's gluten free, low calorie, low carb, low fat, low sodium. So it's a very, very, very good alternative to any snack you may want. As of right now, I'm just looking to be in Oklahoma and having a successful business within the state. If my grandkids could ever take it over when they're old enough, that would be my dream.
Welcome back to the Poke Report. I'm Alice Tusky and I'm joined by Asa Lucas. The Cowgirls soccer team has been off to a blistering start with a record of 9-1-2 heading into last week. One of the stories has been the excellent play of freshman goalkeeper Jordan Nitas. With more, Derek Mendez.
As Cowgirls soccer is heading to the latter part of the season, they have proven to be a strong and exciting team to watch. Their attack has been electric with a total of 26 goals, and their defense has been solid with 8 total shutouts. Freshman goalkeeper Jordan Nitas is one of the main reasons the Cowgirls have been such a strong force in the back. Coach Carmichael believes the two things that make Nitas an incredible keeper are her athleticism and commanding presence in the box.
And then on the field, two things. She's able to make saves that other keepers can't with her athletic ability, and then her ability to take high balls. Like I said, I knew she was pretty good at that, but when she got here and she started taking some of those crosses against 5'10", 5'11" forwards that are jumping in her face, she takes them like it's nothing. So those are probably the two things on the field that have really impressed me.
Whenever Coach Carmichael or his players have a chance to speak about Jordan, they praise her fearlessness and aggressive nature in the box, which is what she believes sets herself apart from other keepers in the conference.
I think it probably is that ability to just command the box and be able to go and take the balls out of there, because there are moments like, if I'm not able to catch the ball, like my defenders might not be able to get there either, and it could be an opportunity for the other team to score. So I think that is definitely something that I'm pretty good at.
Nitas has played in and started all 13 games for the Cowgirls so far, facing 122 shots, saving 43, and only allowing 6 goals. With how well she has been able to adapt to college soccer, she credits her success to her teammates.
Honestly, I couldn't name one person. The entire team has been super welcoming and super awesome in the transition. I think someone I've connected to a lot is Liv. We've talked a lot, we've hung out a lot outside of the soccer field, and I think that she's definitely a role model for sure.
Nitas already has 2 Big 12 Goalkeeper of the Week honors and looks to continue to strive for the Cowgirls. Reporting for the Poke Report, I'm Derek Mendez.
Thank you, Derek. In large part due to the performance of Nitas, the Cowgirls have only allowed multiple goals in a game one time this season.
In their lone matchup last week, Cowgirls soccer traveled to that school down south to play Oklahoma in Bedlam soccer. Connor Bergen has the latest.
Defense wins championships and also helps you remain undefeated in conference play. The Oklahoma State Cowgirls traveled down to Norman for their lone matchup of the week in what went down to the final second. In the 26th minute, freshman goalie Jordan Knight continued her dominance throughout the season, denying Sooners' Emma Hawkins of her second goal on the year. The scoring wouldn't begin until the second half, as in the 54th minute, freshman Grace Binboyle would jump above the rest for the header to the upper left corner to make it 1-0 OSU. That lead would remain for nearly 20 minutes. Sooners freshman Michelle Pack would sneak one into the bottom left post in what would end as a 1-1 draw. While the Cowgirls remain undefeated in conference play, that will be put to the ultimate test this week as the TCU Horned Frogs come to town. Taking a look into the numbers between the Cowgirls and the Horned Frogs, it's been a near one-sided affair between the two squads when they come to meet. TCU comes to Stillwater undefeated not only in conference play this year, but also on Cowgirls' home turf since Neil Patterson Stadium was redecorated in 2018. One major difference this year from the past is the defensive presence that has been showcased. Cowgirls' Kiona Simone says this defense still has a lot more to showcase throughout the year.
Haven't really gotten scored on as much this season, which is really good. We may not have been able to put as many goals behind in the back of the net of the other team as we'd like, but we're still up there. We're still a threat. We have a lot of potential up top and in the midfield.
While the Cowgirls look to break that streak, head coach Colin Carmichael says the main key to this one lies in the hands of his most creative players attacking all night long.
We understand that we will defend at times, but we also understand that when we get the ball, our creative players have to go. We got to get numbers forward and we got to hurt them as well. So getting that balance right is the tricky part.
First whistle is set for both of these teams on Thursday at 7 p.m. Reporting for the Poke Report, I'm Connor Bergen.
Thanks, Connor. To keep up to date with Cowgirl soccer, you can go to OSU Athletics on any social media platform. See, Cowgirl and Cowboy golf both have been excelling this year. Oklahoma State women's golf team finished up play at the Illini Women's Invitational Tuesday. The Cowgirls placed ninth as a team with a score of 13 under. One bright spot of the tournament for the Cowgirls was the play of junior Madison Hinson Tolchard. She finished third individually with a career-best 54-hole score of 12 under 204. Hinson led the field in par 4 scoring, shooting 8 under on multiple holes. Now shifting over to Cowboy golf, Oklahoma State men's golf team finished 7th at Seminole Golf Club with a score of 4 under. Cowboy golfer Giannis Baumgartner stood out, taking second place at the individual title, 4 shots behind UNC's David Ford with a score of 12 under 200. Cowboys start Big 12 conference play on October 17th at Houston Oaks Country Club, and the Cowgirls resume activity on October 23rd at the Jim West Challenge in San Marcos, Texas. To keep up with Cowboy and Cowgirl golf news, you can go on oklahomastate.com.
Cowboy basketball head coach Mike Boynton is often seen sporting his sneaker collection on sidelines and recruiting trips. But this love for sneakers has built a culture here in Stillwater. Our own Noah Weber has a story.
Collecting sneakers is a phenomenon within pop culture. Oklahoma State basketball is a part of this phenomenon, and the players express themselves through wearing these sneakers, specifically Michael Jordan's signature shoe, the Nike Air Jordan. One person that has been wearing Jordans for longer than anyone else within the program is OSU basketball head coach Mike Boynton.
Man, I've been a sneakerhead probably as long as I can remember. My mom actually worked in the sporting goods store when I was a young boy, growing up in New York, and she would always obviously know when releases were happening.
Someone within the OSU basketball program that is just as passionate about sneakers as Coach Boynton is guard Bryce Thompson. Thompson has collected from a young age, but has felt the need to step his collection up once arriving at OSU and playing under Coach Boynton.
I think it's starting with Coach. You know, Coach has kind of set the bar high, you know what I'm saying? Every day he coming in with a new pair, a fresh pair, so, you know, we kind of trying to keep up with him.
Part of Coach Boynton setting the bar high is making sure himself and his players look good on and off the court, especially on the road. And yes, this includes the shoes that they are wearing.
So when I go out there, I'm representing everybody. And so I want to make sure that we look good, that there's some positive things being talked about. And if it's the way we dress and we look good walking around and carrying ourselves in a positive, confident way, that certainly helps.
It has become normal to see Boynton recruiting players in an exclusive pair of sneakers. He says that dressing in this way helps attract young talent, as well as creating a swagger and confidence for himself and his current players.
Here at GIA, shoes give the OSU basketball team a way to express themselves. Whether it's the Jordan 11 like Coach Boynton, the Jordan 1 like Bryce Thompson, or the Jordan 3 like Chris Harris Jr.
We can speak
with our style, you know what I mean? Like, you can always, if you got a nice pair of shoes on, they'll speak louder than some of your words.
Chris Harris Jr. and company will continue to speak through their performance on the court and with their Jordans off the court. For the Poke Report, I'm Noah Weber.
Thank you, Noah. With Cowboy basketball tip-off less than a month away, we are now joined by our Cowboy basketball expert, Tony Wetmore. Tony, thanks for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
So, what is the difference between this year's Cowboy basketball team compared to last year's?
That would be 4 new players. We have 2 coming in with Keon Williams and Naz Brown are our new freshmen. And then from Texas State, we have Caleb Asbury. And from High Point University, we have John Michael Wright.
Last year, the Cowboys struggled on offense. Let's call it what it is. How has Coach Boynton planned to use these new players while utilizing the familiar faces we see from last year?
So Wright and Asbury are both 3-point threats. They both shot from just under 40% from the 3-point line last season at their respective schools. I think they're going to have a great impact on this offense and an instant impact on this offense, as well as some improvement from our returning players as well.
Let's hope we can see that and hope we can move up in the Big 12 conference. You know, I believe the preseason poll came out putting us at 5. You know, obviously Baylor, Kansas at top. What are your thoughts on Oklahoma State in the Big 12?
I can agree with 5. I think that's a good placement, and I hope to see us climb past that and hopefully past Baylor and Kansas, but I guess we'll see.
All right, thank you, Tony. We will be looking to her as Cowboy and Cowgirl basketball tips off pretty soon. We are going to take one more quick break. Don't go away.
I'm Kristen Hawkins. I went to Oklahoma State University here in Stillwater in '99 to 2004. I've always felt like Stillwater needed more family-friendly things to do, and we have opened up AR Workshop. We do everything from knitting blankets that can be done in a 3-hour class. We create doormats and porch signs, the Christmas wreaths with our yarn that we use for the blankets. We also do, we just started a new project for gnomes, and we've done pumpkins during the fall. But our big thing that we do here are interior signs. Our designs are extremely unique to AR Workshop. Customers come in, everything is here for them to do. They create everything. They can be as hands-on as they want. They came in here to relax and have fun, and that they are proud of their project that they've made.
My name's Dennis Abernathy. Lived here since 1968, and I consider myself one of Stillwater's oldest original family jewelers. Here at Dennis the Jeweler, we're more about personal service. My father always told me that anybody can sell the jewelry, and what we're doing is completely different, learning to do the repair work. That is one thing that will keep your business alive, because anybody can sell it, but not anybody can fix it. To me, jewelry is very, very personal. Every piece of jewelry has its own story, and I get to hear hundreds of stories from my clients, which I love to hear. There's always a story with it. I mean, you buy a piece of jewelry for a show of appreciation, a sign of love. There are a lot of different aspects for jewelry when you purchase it.
Welcome back to the Poke Report. OSU has tennis players from all over the world, but one player in particular has quickly become the heart and the soul of the team. Hayden Simmons has more.
For many athletes from overseas, moving to America can be daunting. For Isaac Beckcroft, it felt easy. Hurdles such as the COVID-19 pandemic could have slowed him down, but Isaac's positive attitude and charming personality helped him to persevere and ultimately thrive through it all. Isaac grew up in Wellington, New Zealand, the country's capital, and knew that if given the opportunity to play collegiately in America, he had to take it.
Such little opportunities in New Zealand, so small, so if you can get a scholarship to America, I think that's the goal for everyone.
Isaac started at Mississippi State, where he spent only his freshman season before deciding to transfer to Oklahoma State. After a wild first couple of years of college, Isaac says he has found a home.
Yeah, Mississippi State, yeah, my college experience has been crazy with COVID and stuff, but I'm so lucky I'm here in Oklahoma State now.
After looking at a few schools during the transfer process, Isaac chose Oklahoma State not for the bright orange or the crazy win that reminded him of home, but because of a single man, Dustin Taylor.
It was purely the coach, really. I didn't know much about the place. I knew they had amazing facilities, but new coach here just for 1 year. Everyone says such good things about him, and they were 100% correct.
Since joining the Cowboys, Isaac has brought the energy on and off the court. His teammates feed off his energy and use it to make themselves better as well.
I think Isaac came in a semester after me, and we just kind of, it was one of those things where we connected right away. I think he brings pretty much all the fire to this team. Like, he kind of gets everyone fired up.
Now that Isaac has had more than a year to settle in at OSU, his focus lies in his craft. He hopes to leave an impact on the Cowboy tennis program that will last well beyond his final match.
I think the main thing is just leaving the program in a better place than what I got it here. Trying to make it a place where everyone competes every day as hard as they can.
Isaac and the Cowboys are in the midst of a heavy fall schedule and will look to make some national noise in the spring. For the Poke Report, I'm Hayden Simmons.
Thank you very much, Hayden. Both Cowboy tennis and Cowgirl tennis are competing in respective events, both in ITA regionals and ITA regional championships.
Cowboy tennis started tournament action yesterday and will be competing today and tomorrow as well. A couple players to watch out for, Tyler Zink and Sebastian Nothaft, who together came into the season ranked as the number 11 duo team nationally by the ITA preseason polls. Cowgirl tennis started their tournament yesterday as well, and they will be competing until Monday. Watch out for Sofia Rojas this weekend, who is coming off of a championship win at the Intercollegiate Championships in San Diego, California last Sunday. You can follow along with both of these teams on Twitter at Cowboy Tennis and Cowgirl Tennis. That's all we have for the Poke Report today. I'm Alex Dusky.
And I'm Asa Lucas. Don't forget to tune in next week. We're going to keep you updated on all things Oklahoma State. Have a good evening, and don't forget, go Pokes!
We would design something, it was set on the counter, and people was either, if enough of them said, you know, this isn't it never made to the line. Dad was excited that they're all original. They were all designed on Mom's kitchen table, and it gets in your blood after a while.
We're very happy that Pamela and Michael have taken over the business and kept the family going.
We took the business over in 2017. When we found that it was available, we wanted to keep the legacy of family alive, but it was also incredible products that deserved to be a part of Made in Oklahoma's story. We were a part of Made in Oklahoma years ago, and so it kind of grew as Made in Oklahoma grew.
Oklahoma is ingrained into everything that we did. We've been here most of our life. That's what we entailed our whole business on, was the Oklahoma homegrown feeling.
Pecans are staple to Oklahoma. In fact, many of our native pecans come from trees that are older than Oklahoma statehood.
My father's the one that got us started into the pecan picking. I was probably 10 or 12 years old, and we started off with one little mechanical picker that you pulled behind a four-wheeler. Then we'd go home at night and we'd clean them on a TV tray. I guess watching my dad work hard when we were young, and people started trusting him and getting more and more groves, we just kept growing.
Being a relatively new and fresh company, we get to sit in the same room with people who have been a part of the Oklahoma economy for decades.
It's opened a lot of doors. It's gave us quite a bit of exposure, and I think people, will take a small company like us a little more serious. We're just going to continue growing as long as our community lets us and our customers keep on buying, and we'll see where it takes us.
Our state is one of the most beautiful and unique states in the USA. With diverse geographies, the historic Route 66, unforgettable restaurants, and some of the greatest people on the planet. With so much to see and so much to do, living in Oklahoma means one of the best vacation spots is right in our own backyard. Doesn't this story need to be told? As filmmakers and photographers based right here in Oklahoma, we thought so. And hey, who doesn't like a good road trip? So, we packed up our cameras, teamed up with Lieutenant Governor Matt Pinnell and the Oklahoma Tourism and Recreation Department, and that's how this series was born. We want to show you why traveling within the great state of Oklahoma is a great idea. So come join us for thousands of miles over the next year, from Broken Bow to Black Mesa. This is the Oklahoma Road Trip.
Welcome back to this week's episode of The Writer's Room. I'm your host, Tessa Durrell, and today I'm joined by Adam Engel and Abby Cage. So first off, I'm going to talk to you guys about your position with the O'Colly. You guys are both co-editors in chief. So what is that like working together here at the O'Colly?
Well, for me to be co-editors in chief, I actually really like it because I feel like Abby and I, we complement each other well with different skill sets. Like for me, I'm more of a writer, and Abby's more of a designer, a photographer. I didn't know, like we used a software program called InDesign. I had no idea how to do it, any of it, until like last week. And so that just shows that we have different skill sets, and like I said, it complements each other well because of that.
Yeah, we're able to build off of each other's different skill sets, and then also we're able to build off each other's strengths that are similar as well. Right. We're able to emphasize, like Adam and I are both good at like being leaders and like putting the first foot forward, and so we're both able to do that. And then we also are able to keep each other in check if needed a little bit, because we both definitely need that sometimes. Yeah. That, I mean, like he'll get too busy on a story, or I'll get too busy taking photos or something, that we forget that like, oh, we are the editors in chief. Like maybe we should do the chiefly things. Yeah. So, yeah.
So what's it like trying to tell stories through photos versus actually writing stories for the O'Colly?
It's actually very similar to writing whenever you talk about like imagery writing. So the perfect photo for an article is one that is gonna like exemplify what the words are saying through a photo. You wanna capture that moment in time and be able to show somebody that photo and be able to like, you can tell them what the photo is through a sentence that you're writing in the article. That's kind of how I think of it. And I continually try to make sure I'm telling a story with the photos I'm taking, and I'm not just like, oh, Spencer Sanders is standing on the sideline, click. Like, he's got to like be showing something. Like, there's got to be like emotion, or like there's some kind of like meaning behind the way that he's standing or what he's doing, and things like that.
Yeah. So how many times do you guys meet in a week for the O'Colly? What is it like getting prepared and organizing everybody's work?
Yeah, do you want me to take this? She's
counting it all out.
Yeah. Sunday, Tuesday, 1, 2, 3 department meetings, and then Thursdays all day for working on the paper. So a lot.
Yeah. I mean, it really is like a 7-day type deal. I mean, we're not in the newsroom every day, but like you said, so each Sunday at 4 p.m. we have our editors meeting, which is just the editors and us, and we're like, okay, good job last week, but now we're on, like, it's like a football coach. We're on to the next opponent, we're on the next paper, then we plan ahead. Monday, we have our department meetings. So like Monday at 4 o'clock, it's the sports writers meeting. 5 o'clock, it's the news and lifestyle meeting. 5:30 is the photography meeting. And then Tuesdays, usually at about 4 o'clock, is another editor meeting, but this time it's with John Helsley, our faculty advisor. And so because he's not here on the weekend, so he's here. So we have another meeting, and then the same type deal. Like Abby said, Thursday all day. It's our work day. I mean, Thursday we're in there. We're printing out the pages. We're editing. I mean, Thursday is you get to see everything. Everything happens on Thursdays.
And we kind of like to say that like Fridays are like our off day. But I mean, even like in recent weeks, we've had breaking news happen on Fridays. I mean, it's just, it never stops. Every single time that something happens, like you got to be there, you got to be ready to go. So
it sounds like you guys have your hands in every aspect of the O'Colly. How do you balance having those responsibilities with the O'Colly and of course other responsibilities like school and things like that?
A lot of time management. It definitely was a lot to get used to, especially after Adam and I had such a great system this summer. And then we jumped right back into school, and we added the other editors into the mix as well. And so it was like, oh shoot, there's a lot of other people that we got to include on this now and make sure that they're doing their things, and there's a whole lot more content that you produce during the school year, because obviously there's more people on campus, and there's more things going on. So it was definitely a lot to adjust to, and I think that it was beneficial. We had a week before that we did training, and then we did our first paper that week before we even started school. So we kind of got like an understanding of how things are going to work whenever we do the paper, and then we added in school the next week, and then we added in football preview, I think the same week that school started even.
It was chaotic.
Yeah, it was very chaotic just to start. But then you kind of gradually just kind of get into a routine of like, this is what happens every week. You get more used to the meetings that we have happening constantly. And then you I kind of like block out time. Like if I'm in the newsroom, working on Okali, and then if I'm not in the newsroom, like I'll go to the library and I'm like, okay, this is homework time, and some things like that.
Yeah. So that's about all the time we have here for this first segment, but make sure to stick with us because next up we're going to take a look at some of the work Abby has done with her photos. So stick with us here in the writer's room.
My name is James Ramidi. Fired Up Stilly is the name of the business, and I'm one of the owners. We all three met, the three owners, working as employees at a similar place like this. What I hope for is for everybody to feel welcome, like family. Not only do I want students to feel welcome to come here and study and use our free Wi-Fi, but also I want adults and families to be able to come in. We've built a connection with a lot of people, and Stillwater's a big community, so we just want to invite everybody to be able to eventually make their way through our doors. Well, definitely the teas, I would say. Most people fall in love with them. They just got a great amount of energy, gets you going through your day, and it just kickstarts you to get everything you need to done. For myself, it would just have to be, being the owner, owning something that, is able to impact other people's lives, and, the way we can affect our community is something that I really have always wanted to do. We love our clients and our customers that come through every day, and we enjoy getting to know them.
Well, how I got started was my daughter said, Mama, why don't we rent a booth at the Quarter Horse Show? And it was very, very good because, when you're giving your jelly away for free, people really do love it. But when you ask them to pay for it, then that's a true test. What makes my product so unique is the Scotch bonnet pepper. And the Scotch bonnet is the Jamaican pepper. And I had lived in Montego Bay, Jamaica for 4 years. So I learned how to handle the pepper and how to cook with it. I always say, you don't do this on your own. I mean, you have so many people that help you along the way. For me and for many of us, that's my name on that jar, and it better be good.
We are back here in the writer's room with Adam and Abby, and right now we're going to talk about some of Addie's photos for the Okali. So Abby, what is it like preparing photos and taking photos for the Okali?
It's a lengthy process for sure. The nice thing is that I was photo editor last year, and then this year we have another photo editor. Her name is Mackenzie, and she's able to help a lot with the managing of all of the photographers, so that Adam and I can make sure that we're doing our editor-in-chief stuff. So she's really kind of in charge of assigning the photographers, figuring out who has what strengths with what, because not everybody is able to do sports photography. I mean, everyone has different strengths and everyone has different things that they're really good at. Like we have a photographer who loves doing theater, so every time that there's a theater performance, we send her. And then we have 3 boys in specific that love shooting sports, and they're amazing at it. And so those are the 3 sports guys that we have, because everyone else is kind of like not as confident about it. So that's the first thing, is making sure you're picking the right person. You're picking the right one that is going to be able to get the job done. And then of course, you go to the event, you take all the pictures that you need to, and then afterwards, usually you end up with like double or triple the amount of photos you really need. I end up with like quadruple, even sometimes with football games, because you have that high shutter speed. You just want to capture everything that happens. And so that is probably the most lengthy process, is going through all of the photos and picking the right ones, like which ones are going to have the most emotions, which ones are going to be the sharpest, and which ones are going to be the one that's going to match the story correctly.
So what's some of the most important elements when it comes to selecting specific photographers for specific events?
One of the things we look for is their commitment time, because obviously, I mean, if they aren't working consistently inside the newsroom, then we know they're not going to be working consistently outside the newsroom. Whenever they go to 3-hour basketball games, 5-hour football games, 2-hour like walk around events, I mean, if they're not able and willing to put in that time, then it becomes a big no-no. Like, not worth sending that person out to do that. So that's a big thing, is time commitment. And then we also look for someone who captures the right angles. You kind of want to be bold and courageous in the photos and the angles that you take, because you don't want to be getting the same photo that everyone else is getting. Like, you don't want to have the same ones as the Oklahoman or the Tulsa World. You want to be able to have a unique photo that you're showing. And I think that that's another thing that is a key factor in looking and seeing, okay, who took the chance to go and stand up on a stool instead of just standing on the ground like a normal person, or who took the low angle, or who went behind a curtain and took a photo. I mean, things like that.
Yeah. So what are your specific responsibilities as far as photography goes with the O'Colly?
I pretty much do anything and everything that comes to whenever shooting photos. Like, if there's a photo needed, then I'm probably the first person to be asked besides Mackenzie. I'm so grateful that I've had Mackenzie, because she's been able to help a lot with that it's not all fallen on me, and she's an amazingly talented photographer. And so I think the biggest thing that I'm in charge of is finding the creative things whenever we don't know what visual element to have. There was an example, I think, on the screen that showed a coffee cup picture that we had last winter. We were doing an article about all of the holiday lattes and holiday drinks that all of the coffee shops do. We had no clue what to do. We were like, do we want to just get like a stock photo of like a pumpkin spice latte? Like, that's just like a basic thing. And then we were like, okay, well wait, there's all these fun cups and like all the decorative festivities and stuff. And so I actually had the blue blanket that was in that background in my car. I took that blanket, I went to every single coffee shop that I could in town and said, give me a fall drink and all of the fall cups, or fall cups and winter cups that you have. And they're like, okay. So then everyone walked into the newsroom that morning, and I had gotten there early, and I was like setting up like this whole like photo booth almost in the corner. And they were like, we know you drink coffee, but we didn't think it was that much.
Yeah.
Like, it's coming up with all the creative different ways to have a visual that goes with the story that's going to be meaningful and not just like a basic stock photo.
Yeah, that's awesome. So that's all the time we have for this segment with Abby, but make sure to stick with us, because next up we're going to take a look at some of Adam's work. So stay with us here in the writer's room.
Hi, I'm Shauna here at Where the Buffalo Roam in beautiful downtown Pawnee, Oklahoma. We have a lot of beautiful and unique items for sale in the store, but our number one items are Navajo jewelry, Pendleton blankets, and Consuela. It's a great place to shop, a beautiful downtown, so come see us in Pawnee, Oklahoma.
Pecans are staple to Oklahoma. In fact, many of our native pecans come from trees that are older than Oklahoma statehood.
My father's the one that got us started into the pecan picking. I was probably 10 or 12 years old, and we started off with one little mechanical picker that you pulled behind a four-wheeler. Then we'd go home at night and we'd clean them on a TV tray. I guess watching my dad work hard when we were young, and people started trusting him and getting more and more groves, we just kept growing.
Being a relatively new and fresh company, we get to sit in the same room with people who have been a part of the Oklahoma economy for decades.
It's opened a lot of doors. It's gave us quite a bit of exposure, and I think people, will take a small company like us a little more serious. We're just going to continue growing as long as our community lets us, and our customers keep on buying, and we'll see where it takes us.
We are back from our break here in the writer's room, and right now we're going to take a look at one of Adam's latest stories for the O'Colly. So Adam, why don't you tell me a little bit about your mental motivation story that you wrote for the O'Colly?
Yeah, so it's like you said, it's titled Mental Motivation. So last week in college sports, it was College Football Mental Health Awareness Week, and then also just Mental Health Awareness Week in general among college athletics. So it was an opportunity for football teams. I think there was 124 across the nation that participated in it, and then also just the athletic department here at OSU to just kind of celebrate and raise awareness for mental health awareness. It's something that affects everyone. I mean, you can be the best football player at OSU, you can be the best wrestler, but it doesn't mean you're the best mentally. I mean, because it affects everyone. And so, like the OSU football team, they were wearing like decals, and they had wristbands for, it's called Helinski's Hope. It was a nonprofit organization. I think in 2018 there was this quarterback from Washington State named Tyler Helinski that unfortunately committed suicide, and so his parents, his family started that organization, and they, it's now to the point where this guy from Washington, there's a team in Oklahoma that is honoring him, and so I think that was pretty special. And yeah, the team last week, all the athletic teams, they were out at the student union handing out like green candy, because apparently the color for mental health awareness is green. And for me, it was just like a regular story in the process. I mean, it was just a regular weekly story for me, but I felt like there was a lot more of a personal impact because, I mean, let's be honest, I think everyone struggles with mental health at one point or another. So, like I said, treated it like a regular story, but it meant a little more to me because of that.
Yeah. So with those stories that are a bit more serious, but also maybe hold a little more weight in your personal life, what is it like preparing for those stories?
Well, I mean, I think it's honestly easier to prepare because you understand. Like you can relate to the subject, you can relate to people, the people that you're talking to. So in that regard, it's easier, because if someone tells you, oh, I struggle with this, you know exactly what they're going through because you went through it. It was kind of the same deal with I know last week I talked to you about the cross-country story I wrote. Same type deal, like a family member with cancer passed away. I mean, it's the same type of deal. So for me, that's what I like. It's really tough. It's tough stuff to deal with, but it does make it easier because of that personal connection.
Yeah. So in your story, you talked about Coach Gundy's initiatives that he's kind of taken on to help with mental health among the team. What do you think about that? I found that pretty unique to have, the head coach also taking part in not just this week of mental health awareness, but for the whole season. What do you think that says about Coach Gundy?
Yeah, I mean, I think it says a lot about him. He is like an old school coach. I mean, his coaching methods are pretty old school, but that is kind of a new trend in my opinion. I mean, he notices that people struggle with mental health, and I think it's a trend in college sports too. I mean, college sports are so much different now than what they used to be. I mean, you have billion-dollar TV contracts, you've got NIL, you have team psychologists, which honestly I think it's necessary. I mean, these guys go through a lot. I've seen instances where like kickers, maybe they miss a big field goal in a big game. Some of them have gotten death threats. Like, folks, it's just a game. I mean, it's a sport. It means a lot to people, but at the end of the day, it's a game. And so that's what people, I mean, they're students. They do the same thing we do. They go to class, they have the same teachers, have the same assignments. They just are gifted in a different way.
Yeah, that's awesome. So that's all the time we have here for this segment. But next up, we're going to take a look at some Big 12 football and OSU football. So stay with us for that next up on the Writers' Room.
I'm Kristen Hawkins. I went to Oklahoma State University here in Stillwater in '99 to 2004. I've always felt like Stillwater needed more family-friendly things to do, and we have opened up AR Workshop. We do everything from knitting blankets that can be done in a 3-hour class, and we create doormats and porch signs, the Christmas wreaths with our yarn that we use for the blankets. We also do, we just started a new project for gnomes, and we've done pumpkins during the fall. But our big thing that we do here are interior signs. Our designs are extremely unique to AR Workshop. Customers come in, everything is here for them to do. They create everything. They can be as hands-on as they want. They came in here to relax and have fun, and that they are proud of their project that they've made.
Ace in the Bowl salsa started many, many years ago. I was trying to find a recipe to take to a family gathering, and so I started messing around with different recipes, and I took a little bit from here and a little bit from there, and I came up with a salsa that is truly unique. Ace in the Bowl salsa is an olive oil based salsa with tomatoes, green chilies, green onions, and black olives. There's no sugar added, it's gluten-free, low calorie, low carb, low fat, low sodium. So it's a very, very, very good alternative to any snack you may want. As of right now, I'm just looking to be in Oklahoma and having a successful business within the state. If my grandkids could ever take it over when they're old enough, that would be my dream.
Welcome back to our final segment for today here in the Writers' Room. So we're going to take a look at some OSU football and some Big 12 football. I've got some stats here. This past week, Sanders had 297 yards total, 2 rushing touchdowns, and 1 throwing touchdown to Green. What does that say about Spencer Sanders and his versatility?
Do you want me to take this?
Yeah, you take it.
Well, no, I think Spencer Sanders, I mean, he's evolved a lot. He's matured. I think he's, in his fourth year here as a starter. I mean, he knows this offense better than anyone else. And it also says a lot, I think, about the coach's trust in him. Like Coach Gundy said multiple times, we let Spencer do whatever he wants. Because, I mean, he's earned it. Like I said, he knows the playbook. So he's really developed as a dual threat quarterback as well. He can throw the ball, he can run, and a lot of the times he just ends up running the ball anyways. I mean, he is the best he's been as a Cowboy, and he's only going to get better, I think.
Yeah, definitely. So that was a huge game this past weekend for the Cowboys. A great comeback against apparently a tough Texas Tech team for us.
Yeah, they're
now
good.
This week we're facing TCU. What do y'all think about this matchup? What does that mean for the Cowboys, and how could this potential win, hopefully a win, set the Cowboys up for success later on in the season?
I think this definitely is probably one of the biggest, if not the biggest game that this team could probably have, pending if they get into the Big 12 football championship or whatever bowl game they end up in. I mean, we've seen the last couple of weeks that these Big 12 teams are coming to fight. You've seen them like pushing even more. They're pulling their best plays that they can. And they're not afraid to be bold and make choices that they probably wouldn't normally take. It's very much seen like taking photos too, that it's not normal plays that are happening. And so I think that that's a big factor in it, that they have to be, I think OSU has to be prepared for the unexpected, because they're being unexpected. So I think that they should expect that with the rest of the teams that they face this season, especially TCU.
Yeah.
Yeah, and obviously this is the game. I mean, this is the 2 undefeated teams in the Big 12, and these TCU, OSU, the only teams left. So honestly, I mean, it sets each one up in better position for the Big 12 championship. I mean, either way, whoever, even if OSU loses, they're still might be favored to go down to Arlington for the Big 12 championship, but it also puts more pressure on them. If they lose, actually, either way, I feel like it puts more pressure on them to perform later, because if they lose, then they're not only going to have to win out probably, but they're also looking for other teams to lose as well.
Yeah. So Abby, my next question is for you in regards to sports photography, especially in football. What is it like trying to take pictures for football games at OSU versus lifestyle shots?
Scary. It's very scary at times, especially whenever I'm in the end zone. My mom always jokes that she wishes that I'm wearing a helmet sometimes when I'm down there, because she's worried that they're going to have a touchdown and they're just going to come smack right into me. But the guys are all super nice, which is the nice thing. I mean, I met a couple of them like just through practices and like being on the sidelines and stuff. And so like just in passing, I've kind of like Brendan Evers has saved me from being tackled in practice once, because I was in a very wrong spot, and he goes, "You might want to move over a little." And I was like, cool. And sure enough, he was about to go right where I was sitting. And so, I mean, it's nice that the guys, they're aware of what's going on, especially in football. Because, I mean, lifestyle, you're usually like kind of in the back, hiding out, or you're setting up like studio stylized shots. It's very low key compared to whenever you're on the football sidelines. And especially in Boone Pickens, those sidelines are tight.
Yeah.
So you are right next to the action, you are right in the midst of everything, and you're getting real up close and personal with the guys occasionally, and it's a lot. But it's so much fun. The adrenaline pumping is exhilarating, and it's so much fun to get those amazing shots that, I mean, sometimes you just press the shutter, and then all of a sudden you get an amazing shot like that. You don't even expect what's going to happen, because you don't expect them to run whatever way. You can predict that they're going to run a certain way, but then they're going to run the opposite way.
Yeah.
So you're always staying on your feet, and so it's scary, but it's an exciting scary.
Yeah.
So yeah.
So my next question is for you, Adam.
Yeah.
And going into this game against TCU, what is the key for the Cowboys to win against TCU?
Well, I think the obvious key for them is stopping the TCU's quarterback, Max Duggan. It's crazy because he started the season as backup. I mean, I think there's no way he's going to be, like, he should be their starter for the rest of the season. Coach Gunny was saying, he's like, yeah, I think he's faster than a lot of our other guys on defense. So he can do it all. He's like Spencer Sanders a lot in a lot of respects. So that's the big deal. If OSU could contain Max Duggan, because he's like Spencer Sanders in the sense that if he gets chased out of the pocket, he can run too. And I know the secondary, it's a young secondary for OSU. They've gotten exposed. And many times this season. I know you saw it in the second half against Central Michigan. You saw it a little bit against Texas Tech. But also, I do feel like the secondary is improving, but I also feel like Max Duggan is enough to expose them.
Yeah, he's among the top 3 quarterbacks as far as rushing yards go in the Big 12. He's had 14 touchdowns on the season with just 1 interception. Yeah. What does that say about having to force him to be inaccurate, or how much is our defense going to have to change going into this game versus what we had to do against Texas Tech?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I don't know if they're going to change. Well, I mean, we'll see how much they change, but the OSU defensive line is just about as good as anyone in the country. I mean, you have Trace Ford, Colin Oliver, Ben Kapinski, who's a walk-on, but he's been playing insanely well. Brendan Evers, like you mentioned, all those guys. The front line is big enough to stop Max Duggan, but honestly, I think the worry should be the secondary. And also what you said, the stat, I think it also says a lot about the Big 12 in general. The Big 12 is a good quarterback conference.
For sure.
I mean, they've got Spencer Sanders, the guy from Kansas, Jalen Daniels, he's awesome. There's just a lot of good players in this league.
Yeah, so with the last maybe just 2 seconds here from each of you guys, what do you think the score is going to be this weekend?
I think TCU is going to win, probably by 1 touchdown.
Oh, man.
1 or 2 touchdowns.
Heartbreaking.
See, yeah, I think TCU is going to win, but just by a field goal. And I'd say OSU's they've won twice at TCU since 1947.
Yeah.
But
so it looks like I'm the only one who picked OSU for this weekend, but that's all the time we have here today in the Writers' Room. Come back next week and join us in the Writers' Room.
Since the beginning, so 4 years. Scratch is more focused on farm and mostly made in Oklahoma products, keeping it local. Sustainability is our biggest thing. That's one of the reasons why this place opened.
I've been the chef here at Scratch for 2.5 years. Started here as a line cook. Our food and drinks are a bit separate entities almost inside the restaurant. So the food is now up to 85% of the products we bring in are raised or grown locally. It's all based off of things that I grew up eating in southern Oklahoma, the things my grandparents ate.
Fresh food, clean food, organic food, sustainability, that's all of our thing. From front of house to back of house, we're able to maintain both with freshness. But made in Oklahoma means we get it straight from the farms that are 20, 30 minutes another little county away. We get it straight from them.
Good afternoon, everyone. Happy Saturday. I'm here with our producer, Landon Green, today. Landon, thank you so much for joining me.
Hey, it's always good to be back, get to talk. Got Tanner over here, Mr. Polka himself. We're gonna see what we can do with that.
So we got the Cowboys down in Fort Worth today for a very big game against TCU. Just tell me a little bit kind of about your thoughts just on the day today.
It could be one of those games where, they could have a really big game. Spencer Sanders could have a good game. Their defense from TCU is probably one of the worst that they've had in a few years. Just trying to kind of recoup from the Gary Patterson years of having just that solid defense just constantly coming out. On the offensive side for TCU, if you can get pressure in Max Duggan's face, it'll be tough for him. But those receivers are about as good as you can find in the Big 12. So it'll be interesting to see. Our secondary is a little down this year, but that front seven that we have, always real solid. So when we can get back there, get some pressure on the quarterback, and Max Duggan, he's not a very good pressure quarterback.
So before we get too much into talking about today's game, let's go back to the game against Texas Tech. We were kind of off to a slower start than we have been previously, and a lot of people were kind of complaining or just commenting on a slow start from the defense especially. Kind of where do you think the problems were in that game, and do you think it was more on the defensive side of the ball?
Yes and no. Mm-hmm. So on the offensive side, you're dealing with a lot of injuries last week. Braden Johnson's out, so you lose your number one receiver from this year at least. Obviously, Bryson Green steps up and has an amazing game, but you lose that player, and so you kind of have to go back to what you got. Jaden Bray was a new receiver that was introduced last week, and they threw it to him a few times, but he hasn't played in a game this season, so you're still trying to get game reps under you. And so whenever you have games like that where you're trying to introduce a player into it and trying to get everybody else involved, it can be tough. But they went to their main guys. John Paul Richardson got a few touches. They really leaned heavily on Dominic Richardson to get some stuff going. And when Spencer Sanders needed to be good, he was good. When you needed to get a first down, he got you the first down that you needed. On the defensive side, I don't know what it is. For the past 10 years, no matter what, you're talking 2011 Big 12 champions. You're Fiesta Bowl champs. You're talking 2021 Fiesta Bowl champs. It doesn't matter. For whatever reason, OSU cannot seem to stop a mobile quarterback. I don't know what it is. Any quarterback that has legs that can actually run, they struggle with those guys. And so really a tough time, slowing down Baron Morton. He did a really good job last week of kind of neutralizing the front seven. And then once he got out into space, he did a great job of getting the ball out and really kind of putting it on the secondary to make plays. And again, when the secondary needed to make plays, they made those plays. But for a lot of the game, it was touch and go there and really scary. And that's where you get a lot of the commentary from people that, haven't watched OSU football or are in denial about OSU football is where you usually get those people that tweet out comments and stuff about those things.
For sure. Okay, so the last time the Cowboys played down in Fort Worth, they didn't end up winning that game. They came out 22-29 loss. But last year, a lot of people called it an embarrassment for TCU, but it was a 63-17 Cowboy win. Explain to me kind of what your biggest take between the two differences in those games, and also kind of, do you expect today to be more of a closer game like 2 years ago, or do you think that we're going to get out there and it's going to be a pretty big difference?
Have you ever been to a game at Amon G. Carter?
I have
or
never.
Amon G. Carter?
I would love to go, but I haven't yet to.
It's insane. It's as loud a venue as you can get. They do a really good job. The acoustics of that stadium, they just really pack it in there, and everything is right there on the field. So all the sound goes to the field. Oh, wow. And so for an opposing team to go in there and try to play, there's a reason TCU's been as dominant as they've been over the past 20 years. And so, when you go in there, it's tough to play. So that's probably a little bit of what happened. Plus, you're talking about, a team that's trying to figure itself out with Spencer Sanders being your starting quarterback to begin the season, and then you kind of go back and forth between, I think that season was the Drew Brown year, so I think they're kind of going back and forth. Or no, it was Illingworth. Spencer Sanders hurts his hand, and then Illingworth steps in. And so him and Shane Illingworth are sort of sharing time, and nobody really knew what was happening. And so that's probably where the loss comes in. Last year, TCU was down. TCU just didn't have a good team. They had, I think, one good receiver, but everybody else, I think they were on their second-string quarterback, or quarterback was hurt. And, OSU went in there and played ball. I mean, it was one of those games where, you're having to put together a good resume going down the stretch of the season where who knows, there's a lot of one-loss teams in there. Who knows if you may be able to break into that college football playoff if you play really well. Obviously, the top 4 teams, it didn't look like it was going to shake out that OSU was going to get into the college football playoff. But, you get a good win against TCU, you get a good win in Bedlam, you get a good win right at the end of the season, and then you go into the Big 12 championship and maybe pull out a win there against Baylor. You're a half yard away from pulling out a Big 12 championship. Who knows what could happen? Who knows if you could have made that? And so you're talking about a team that needed to absolutely execute when they went into TCU last year, and they came in ready to go. And it shows on the scoreboard 63-17, 682 total yards. Anytime you get 500 plus total yards, that's a massive game.
Yeah.
You start to get up in the 700 range, you're talking about a near perfect game.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. I don't exactly remember all the details to last year's game, but I do remember walking away being like, that was brutal. And it was a big deal for us.
It solidified OSU. It really did. I think it showed that, hey, because TCU at that point in time was sort of that team that nobody wanted to play. They were the Iowa State. Now, we did lose to Iowa State last year. OSU lost to Iowa State. But TCU was that team that nobody knew what they could do. They could go out there and beat you, and you would just sit there and go, well, how did they beat us? TCU played OU, and they played a really close game with them, and so it's just a scary team to play against. But when OSU went out there and played them, they just looked really good. They executed well. They ran routes well. Their defense played out of this world. The defense was outstanding last year, but that game in particular, they looked like world beaters. They looked like they could win a Super Bowl out there, and so they did a really good job last year. Now you're down a little bit this year in the secondary. You don't have the linebackers that we had last year, but this is still a decent defense, and if they can create some pressure, you can probably see more of the same this year.
Would you say that TCU is one of the more underrated teams in the Big 12, or do you think they get the credit that they've been deserving, especially this season?
I think they're rated. They are right where they need to be. Okay. I think that they're a team, again, where you go play them at home and you hope that you can come out with the win. You play them away, and they're probably gonna be the team that you play. But I will say one thing that they do well is they play physical. They get around the ball. You saw it against OU. Even though some people on Twitter probably think that, hey, and I probably lean a little bit toward the dirty hits and everything against Dylan Gabriel that took him out for 2 weeks. But that was just more of that. They wanted to get into your head. They want to hit you, and take your quarterback out and make you sit there and go, well, are they going to do this the whole time, or should we worry about that? And so I think they're right where they need to be. I think that they're a team that hasn't really played a tough schedule. I don't know how tough OU is. Is OU this year? They're not. They're okay. They're okay this year. I'm not really sure how good. Any of the Kansas is. Kansas played a really good start of their schedule, and now they're kind of, they're tailing off a little bit. And so I don't know how good Kansas is. And the things that we do well that Kansas didn't do well last week could be the difference in, just an absolute blowout win but with this game, but also could be the difference between TCU winning out the rest of the season.
Okay, so we have new head coach for TCU, Sonny Dykes. He's off to a great start. This is the first time since 2017 that they're 5-0 on the season. Do you think he has what it takes to make it 6-0 against a Cowboy team this year, or even just in general? Do you think he kind of has the structure and the patience and all just the strategy to beat us?
Yeah, a great offensive coach. He's a guy that's going to draw up a lot of great plays for his offense and do a lot of things that sort of confuse people. But the defensive side is where they struggle. Okay. And that's a Sonny Dykes thing. You talk to Jacob up on graphics right now. He'll tell you Sonny Dykes is the opposite of defense. And so when you can go out there and kind of make his defense work a little bit harder, that's where things happen. But his offense, that's where he usually finds a lot of his success, and that's where they've sort of been able to outscore teams this year rather than just absolutely demolish them like we've seen in the past. They just score enough to beat them.
Okay, so we talked about this a little bit. They've had a decent non-conference schedule, and they've played OU and KU so far in the Big 12. we've taken on Texas Tech, we're taking on TCU today, and Baylor away. And then our non-conference wasn't too difficult. It was not too much of a challenge for us. A lot of people said that we wouldn't be too good coming into the season, but obviously we've proved them wrong so far. Do you see TCU being our toughest game of the season, or do you think there's still a chance for someone else to take over that?
I think TCU's going to be one of them. I think it'll be out of the three that I can think of off the top of my head. I'd say TCU would be up there. Kansas State will be a tough one, and I don't know what it is, but even though they don't look very good right now, they look like an absolute dumpster fire. Bedlam is always a tough game, and so you go into Bedlam and you may think that whatever OU's record is going into Bedlam, you don't know, but it's still going to be a tough game. And then honorable mention, I'd say like Iowa State will be tough. Texas is looking like they're turning it around. I'll need to see how they play today. We're actually watching it over here with our guy Tanner right now, trying to keep up with the Texas-Iowa State game. If Texas pulls out a win today, I'd probably put them up there in that top three, kind of move them out of the toughest games we play, as Iowa State just scored. But I mean, we'll see. We'll see if that's the toughest game. But if not, if they lose today, I mean, I'd feel a lot worse about playing OU than I would Texas.
I feel like we've had a pretty tough back-to-back schedule so far this year. I mean, Baylor's always been a problem for us. Texas Tech came out and they dominated last week. TCU today has obviously shown to be a good team. I mean, they completely just annihilated OU, and then KU was a closer game. But so far, who, technically speaking, is the more sound team you'd say out of us in TCU?
I'd say OSU. I'd say OSU is a lot more sound and more, if we're going to do who has the edge, I'd give it to OSU and just most of the stuff. So defensive line, OSU. Linebackers, OSU. Secondary, it's a toss-up, really. On the offensive side, I'd say our offensive line is far and away better than TCU's offensive line. And that's not saying that our offensive line is like the greatest offensive line in the world, but they've done enough to be solid. They've been decent this year. Quarterback play, I would probably give the edge to Spencer Sanders. It's close. Max Duggan's pretty good, but I'd definitely give the edge to Spencer Sanders. Running back play, they got some good running backs down there, but I would still put the ball in Dominic Richardson's hands before I'd put him in anybody else's hands. And so I would say that from position to position, OSU is probably the most structured, most fundamental, and the most sound team.
So do you think that, especially now with the changing Big 12, do you think that there'll be a bigger TCU-OSU rivalry moving forward? I'd say they're always a tough competitor, but they're never someone who's on the top of our list, I'd say.
It's strange. TCU's a weird university, just in general. Being that they were introduced a little late to the Big 12. So they come in. OSU's kind of already has set up their rivalries. So in basketball, I mean, for the longest time, it was OSU and Kansas. Obviously, you have Bedlam. OSU, Texas goes back and forth every year. And then, of course, you have Texas Tech, who comes in and says, hey, OSU's stealing our thunder. They're stealing all of our identity and everything. The identity theft is not a joke, Tanner. And so, they come in and tell us that. So I think Texas Tech, OSU is probably going to be the bigger one. You'll probably see a little bit from like Kansas State and Kansas, I think, making a little bit of a push to be the new rivals for OSU. I don't see TCU being that. I see more TCU Baylor, maybe TCU Texas. But other than that, I don't see TCU really reaching out to try to set up whether informal or organized rivalry.
Interesting. Based off what I've heard just from people that I know and people especially at TCU, they're really excited for today's game. And a lot of people are saying that it might be the foreshadowing to the Big 12 championship. What are your thoughts on that?
It could be. I mean, they're two good teams that are coming into this Big 12 play. We'll see what they can do.
So my final question before we send it out to break is kind of just tell me how you anticipate the environment at today's game to be. Do you think it's going to be very high stress?
It's going to be loud. Spencer Sanders, whoever goes out there, there's some rumors today that Spencer Sanders might not play, but whoever goes out there, defense or offense is going to have to get in there. They're going to have to be sound. They're going to have to be fundamental. They're going to have to really work to play because it's going to be tough to play in.
All right, well, that's going to do it for our first segment on the pregame show today, but we're going to send a commercial. When we come back, be sure to tune back in for a decent defensive breakdown.
Over the years, we kind of realized that you can get ribs anywhere, you can get a steak anywhere, but you can't always get a Mountain View hot link like ours. So we really decided to focus on that niche and realized we had something really special. So that's when we started focusing more on the hot links, but it's still the same family recipe they were making all those years ago. For us, many of our people that work here have been with us for years and decades. So whereas machines kind of break down over time, the people just get better. And it shows in the products we produce. When you buy a Mountain View product, not only is it gonna taste dynamite, but you're also feeding Oklahomans. You're helping employ Oklahomans, and you're helping to fund the state's economy. So what's better than that?
We use the very best of the best ingredients. Demerara sugar is the best that is. Very high quality fruits, berries. The milk we use is the best milk there is. That's what makes our product stand by itself. I like to make yogurt because I like to eat yogurt. We've been doing this for ourselves for many years because it's our tradition, our family. And we want to have a product which would be very similar to French yogurt, but with our touch of uniqueness, linking our name, our products, with the reputation of the Made in Oklahoma Coalition was probably the best thing we have done as far as promoting our product.
Welcome back to the pregame show, everyone. We got a couple of score updates for you guys before we get into the defense. Taryn, you want to give us a little update?
Yeah, so Iowa State just went up. They're 21-17 right now. OU is taking a dominant lead over Kansas, 42-28. Ole Miss is pulling one out right now against Auburn, 38-24. Michigan is kicking Penn State's butt, 31-17. And Illinois is leading Minnesota 23-14.
Nice.
So not too much going on, but it's still time for change. Yeah. So keep a close eye on all the games.
Plenty of game time left.
We appreciate it, Tanner. Thank you.
Yes, thank you for that.
Good job.
Okay, so we talked about this just a little bit ago. Problems with the defense in Texas Tech, but also there's been a lot of concern with our secondary. Where do you think we can improve there?
I mean, it's just a matter of trying to figure out the schemes for your secondary. And here's the thing with the secondary that we have, you know, they've done a good job of bringing kids in here and trying to teach them quickly. But there's a huge rotation going on right now in the secondary. You got guys that are injured that you have to introduce a new player in. This game, you're going to have one guy at least out for the first half because of a targeting call toward the end of the game last week. But then you add on the fact that, you know, there's going to be some injuries out there, so they're rotating guys in. But hopefully you can start to get some of that experience back. And it really comes down to the guys that are coming back: Jason Taylor, Jabbar Muhammad, and those guys. They're going to have to start talking to their teammates and start being vocal leaders. You know, we talked about Trace Ford kind of being that guy that's not necessarily a vocal leader, but he'll go out there and he does stuff by his actions, right? They're gonna have to start being vocal leaders, because that's the kind of stuff, especially in the secondary. I mean, I've played with plenty of cornerbacks and safeties, and those guys, they're the most hype on the field. I mean, it doesn't matter what they do, they're always talking trash. So you got to talk to those guys, get them excited to play, and that kind of stuff. And the X's and O's will come secondary. Before we get into too much detail, how would you say Derek Mason is doing so far this season with our defense? I think he's still figuring it out. He hasn't quite unlocked it yet. Okay. Now then, with the defensive front that OSU has, it makes it easier to kind of figure out the secondary side of it, the coverage side of it. He's really good at blitzing defenses. That's kind of his forte, is the blitzing defense, is bringing a linebacker off the edge, or bringing a twist up the middle with your defensive tackle and defensive end, and then bringing a linebacker either through the middle, through the A gap, or out through the 7 gap. And so when you can get those guys that can sort of move around a little bit, it makes it a lot easier to figure out the coverage game. But once he figures that out, if he figures out the coverage game, this team can go places. This team's going to be able to take on anybody. But that's the one thing that he hasn't quite figured out yet is how to cover teams.
So Tyler Lacey is 5th in the Big 12 right now with 1.3 tackles for loss per game, and he's starting his 37th consecutive start for his career here at OSU. Do you expect him to be one of the more impactful players out of the defense today?
Yeah, I mean, he's definitely a guy where he goes, the rest of the defense goes, and so he's going to go out there and play a little bit. And yeah, I expect him to have a great game. I mean, he's tough to he's a big guy. I mean, he's just already for a football player a big guy.
Yeah.
And then he gets out there and you realize that he's an athlete as well. He's extremely athletic, and so when you kind of mix those two things, size, athleticism, physical ability. Yeah, I think he's going to be very impactful today. And if he can get his hands up a little bit higher, get his hands up in there when the quarterback throws the ball, Max Duggan gets back there in the pocket. Yeah, it's going to be tough for Max Duggan to get those passes off.
Okay, moving to the D-line. Not necessarily who, but where, if you want to say names, that'd be great too. Where do you think they're the strongest right now?
I think everybody's strong. Okay. I mean, you got Ossie, you got Trace Ford, Evers, what's the other guy's name that came? Martin, Brock Martin. And so you got those guys that they're all good. Colin Oliver, even though he's taken a step back this year, I think, he's still a scary defensive lineman. Yeah. He's still a guy. You have Kapinski coming out this year. I mean, the guy that I think had a little bit of playing time last year. But this year, I mean, last week against Texas Tech, he saved our bacon. I mean, you talk about a guy that goes out there and just plays hard 100% of the time. He's that guy. And so when you can have guys like that can, give you that extra minute, get some of those guys off the field and give them some extra time, I think they're really deep. That's where they're the most deep is that defensive line.
So Mason Cobb's been getting a lot of praise this season. And, I mean, it's well-deserved. He's been playing great. Where do you think his best assets lie, though, on the field? What do you think is his strongest?
He's a really good leader. He does a great job of commanding the defense, kind of figuring out where everybody needs to be. And I think he's at his best when he's running around the field making tackles. Obviously, last week, again, we talked about saving bacon. He got the interception last week that sort of secured the game for OSU. But he's a guy that will go out there and he just wants to stick his nose in stuff. He just wants to get whatever color helmet that they're wearing today, and we'll figure that out a little bit later. But whatever color helmet that they're wearing, if it's an orange helmet, he's going to get his orange helmet in somebody's chest and drive through them. And so that's where he's at his best. But he's still a decent coverage linebacker as well.
So let's talk about some concerns then. Where would you say your biggest concern is for today's game? In the secondary? Yeah,
I'd say the secondary is so where TCU really does a great job is in their receiving corps. They like I say they have one of the best receiving corps. Oh, that's a nice helmet right there. Look at that. Tanner, thanks for pulling that up. We got the black helmet with the Pistol Pete logo on the side, the whole Pistol Pete logo. I don't think that I've ever seen that.
Ooh, white jersey.
With the full Pistol Pete, yeah. Black, white, black. With the black cleats, yeah, I'm about it.
We're gonna be looking good today.
Yeah, it's gonna be a good uniform day for OSU. But yeah, so Mason Cobb, he does a really good job of getting there. But the biggest concern is definitely the secondary. I mean, it's tough. They're still trying to figure it out. Their coaching staff is still trying to figure out the secondary right now. And if Max Duggan has enough time, he can be one of the toughest quarterbacks in the Big 12, if not the nation. And so, when you can have somebody like that on your side, it's going to be tough. And the receiving core from TCU is really scary. So they're going to have to get pressure on them to force that. And if they can't, it's going to be real tough because we've seen the secondary struggle against plenty of teams this year.
Okay, so TCU wide receiver Quentin Johnson. He had 14 catches for 206 yards and a touchdown, I believe, in the last game. How big of a threat do you think he'll be for us?
I think he's a big threat.
Yeah.
I mean, if he's the one that I'm thinking of, I mean, does it say how many yards after catch he had?
I don't believe I have that. I can
Okay,
double check.
because if that's the one I'm thinking of, I mean, that guy was catching passes behind the line of scrimmage and just making dudes miss. I mean, he was just slippery, getting through the line, getting up, and really making it tough. And then once he needed to, Max Duggan had enough time. He could get behind the secondary as well. So tough guy to bring down. He's a deep pass threat as well. Can be tough. It can be scary, but we'll see what they can do with that. But yeah, he's going to be, if they can get him the ball, he's going to be real impactful.
So what are just some general keys to the game you think for our defense today?
Get pressure in the backfield. Don't let the running backs get ahead of steam, because once they do, they're tough to bring down. They're bigger guys. I mean, they're probably, I think they're like 5'11", one's 6 foot maybe, the backup. But they're big guys. I mean, they're both 220, I think, or 220 plus. And so when they get a good head of steam behind them, they can, run through anybody. So you just got to get back there, meet them at the line of scrimmage, and then once you get back there, wrap them up. And wrapping up and tackling them, that's the biggest thing for everybody. Because, like I say, once you get the ball in some of these TCU receivers' hands, they're going to be tough to catch. And then once you get there, they're also tough to bring down.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so Max Duggan has a 73% pass completion rate right now, 93 out of 127 for 1,305 yards, which is the best in the Big 12. Shutting him down, how big of a move will that be for us? Or do you think that their run game is good enough to also give us some threat?
No, I think they're gonna stick to the passing game. They know as well as everybody else in Stillwater, whoever's an OSU fan, they know as well as anybody that our secondary is not as good as it needs to be. And so I think they're going to go out and test it. It's going to come down to the defensive line and the linebackers to get back there and get in Max Duggan's face. Because, the few times that Kansas did, and that's one thing that Kansas sort of lacked last week, was the fact that they didn't get any pressure on Max Duggan. And so he sat in the backfield for, 4 or 5 seconds, which for a quarterback is unheard of. In football, you don't get 4 or 5 seconds. On average, I think it's like 2 or 3. And so he's back there for 4 or 5 seconds, hanging out back there, throwing passes where he needs to. And the one or two times that they got pressure, he threw an interception or he threw the ball away. There was one pass that he had a person in his face that was coming down to get their hands up, that he threw a really good pass, but it was that one pass. I mean, I watched the whole game back over again, and that was where I was like, okay, I think if you can get some pressure on this guy, I think he's going to kind of fold a little bit. He's going to have to start using his legs, and we've seen him, against OU, be able to use his legs, and he's a athletic quarterback.
Yeah.
But I think we got better athletes.
Right. Okay, so I was kind of talking about this with some other people. Our defense is very questionable, not in the fact that they're not good, but sometimes I feel like it's just kind of a hit or miss whether or not they're going to be on top of their game. I mean, we saw it with the Texas Tech game, and we saw it with the Baylor game. They were unstoppable almost. Do you think that there will be hesitation today? Do you think that we could potentially come out slow, or do you think that we're going to be off the jump, ready to go?
I think we'll see the first defensive drive. I think that's kind of where the tone will be set for OSU. If you can come out, get some pressure on Max Duggan, and let me tell you, OSU's not a very good first drive team. They're just not. I mean, most teams will come out and score in their first drive against OSU. But if you can come out there and get some pressure, stop them, bring them down, get some sacks, get some tackles for losses, maybe break up a few passes, I think that's really going to tell us exactly where OSU is going to be today on the defensive side. And if they can come in and stop them up, make some things happen, that's where we're going to get. We're going to see a lot of the shine for that defense.
We mentioned a lot of names today, just a lot of key players. Do you think that there's anyone other than maybe the Tyler Lacey and the Brock Martin and the Mason Cobb that's really going to be a standout for us today?
I mean, I think when we finally get to see Kendall Daniels in the second half, I mean, he's a guy that's really been electric this year. He's really shown out, come in when you needed him to play. He's done a great job. And then Kopinski on the defensive line is a guy that I'm really looking forward to, that played really well last week, and I think he's going to play well again this week.
All right, well, I think that's going to do it for this defensive segment today. But before we send it to break, be sure to come back because we're going to talk about the offense. So tune back into the pregame show.
My name's Kayla. I've been here since the beginning, so 4 years. Scratch is more focused on farm and mostly made in Oklahoma products, keeping it local. Sustainability is our biggest thing. That's one of the reasons why this place opened.
I've been the chef here at Scratch for 2.5 years. Started here as a line cook. Our food and drinks are a bit separate entities almost inside the restaurant. So the food is now up to 85% of the products we bring in are raised or grown locally. It's all based off of things that I grew up eating in southern Oklahoma, the things my grandparents ate.
Fresh food, clean food, organic food, sustainability, that's all of our thing. From front of house to back of house, we're able to maintain both with freshness. But made in Oklahoma means we get it straight from the farms that are 20, 30 minutes, another little county away. We get it straight from them.
We would design something, it was set on the counter, and people was either, if enough of them said, this isn't it never made to the line. Dad was excited that they're all original. They were all designed on Mom's kitchen table, and it gets in your blood after a while.
We're very happy that Pamela and Michael have taken over the business and kept the family going.
We took the business over in 2017. When we found that it was available, we wanted to keep the legacy of family alive, but it was also incredible products that deserved to be a part of Made in Oklahoma's story. We were a part of Made in Oklahoma years ago, and so it kind of grew as Made in Oklahoma grew.
Oklahoma is ingrained into everything that we did. We've been here most of our life. That's what we entailed our whole business on, was the Oklahoma homegrown feeling.
Welcome back to the pregame show, everyone. We're going to be talking some offense now. Before we get too much into that, I hear there's an update on the Texas game. Tanner, you want to fill us in?
Yeah, so Texas just scored a fourth down touchdown, so taking about 24-21. Now, Iowa State will get the ball back, and if you look at the past few years, Iowa State's won by 3 points. So this will be a very close game. We'll see how it goes. But we'll be sure to keep you guys updated on the scores.
Looks like OU scored as well.
Mm-hmm.
Looks like they might run away with this one.
OU's going to definitely run away, 49-28 right now.
And we got a lot of close games this week. I mean, this is a big week for college football. I mean, a lot of ranked. You got Michigan, Penn State. Looks like Michigan's up 17 right now in the fourth. Ole Miss, Auburn, a really good game. Illinois, Minnesota, big game in the Big Ten at least. I mean, not a big national game, but definitely somebody. I've been hearing from some whispers from upstairs that Illinois is the best team in the nation. I don't know how true that is, but I'm keeping my eye on that Army Colgate game. That's where I'm keeping my eyes on that Army Colgate.
42-17. That's a smackdown, if you ask me.
Shout out to Colgate. All right.
Okay. Back to OSU TCU. So in the OU game, not ours, TCU's, and in their KU game, they've taken out the quarterback in both of those, and pretty early, I'd say, to the game. Is that a fear of yours that Sanders might get taken out?
Kind of. Not for the same reason that I think Dylan Gabriel's going to go out, but it's the fact that they do a good job of once the quarterback gets out of the pocket, everybody gets to the ball. Mm-hmm. They rally around the point of attack, and so they get in there, and they're going to bring you down. If they get their hands on you, they're bringing you down. Mm-hmm. And so Spencer Sanders is really going to have to take care of himself today. Mm-hmm. I don't think we're going to have a Dylan Gabriel moment where somebody slides and they just try to decapitate him. But last week Jalen Daniels goes down and he tries to throw the ball away. It's sort of a similar situation with Bryce Young, and he separates his shoulder, or so has been reported that he separates his shoulder, and so he's out for a little while. And so that's one thing where if you're getting tackled and you can't get rid of the ball, you might just have to take it with you. Just go ahead and take the L on the sack. Yeah. But I don't think we're gonna have a Dylan Gabriel moment this week either.
Yeah, God forbid. If that were to happen, please, I hope it doesn't, just for safety and everyone. But do you think Gunnar Gundy would be prepared to step into this game and get us going, or do you think that might be a struggle?
Prepared? I don't think so.
Mm-hmm.
But can he come in and manage the game? I mean, that guy's been a game manager since his freshman year of high school.
Yeah.
And so can he come in and make the passes that he needs to make? If you simplify the playbook for him a little bit, can he make the handoffs that you need him to make? Absolutely. Mm-hmm. I mean, I think he'll be fine there. But it's when you need him to actually sit down and go, hey, maybe it's a close game at the end of the game. and you're sitting around going, hey, we're going to put the ball in Gunnar Gundy's hands, and he has to make something happen. That's where we haven't seen too much of a sample size from him.
Yeah. So both teams recently especially have been pretty high-scoring teams. With them, I think it's 46.4 average points per game. Do you anticipate today to be a high-scoring game?
Yeah. I mean, I think it's going to be high scoring. I think that OSU's defense will figure it out against TCU. And so I think that the defense from OSU is going to be able to do some stuff to keep them away from that average that they had. But also I think that OSU is going to score really high. And so, I mean, my prediction is that OSU is going to score in the 40s. But I still think TCU scores quite a bit as well.
We can talk about score predictions later. I'm still working on mine a little bit. I'm hesitant, but to put that out there. But do you think that pace of play might be a factor for today's game? I mean, OSU is a very fast-paced team, and I believe that TCU is pretty fast as well. Baylor was a slow team. That was a struggle. Do you think that will be a contributor to today?
Yeah. I mean, I think that it's always a contributor. It's tough. Obviously these two teams, very, very quick. And what they're going to do is they're going to basically try to neutralize each other's defense. And so we'll see how well that works for them. But I think, it's always a factor. It's tough to, especially on defensive linemen, those guys are not the cross-country runners that are out there in the secondary, or some of them that are out there in the linebacker position. They're sprinters. Yeah. They go for for their 40-yard dashes, and that's it. They don't go for marathons. And so when you get them into those situations where they're out there for 4, 5, 6, 7 plays, and you're going fast and you're having to set up quickly, that's where you start to run into trouble with some of those guys, and you can start to find some running gaps.
So obviously Sanders has had a phenomenal season. He's done more than anyone could ask of him for us as of right now. Do you think? Well, not do you think, other than him, who do you expect to be a standout into today's game?
I mean, Dominic Richardson, I think, can find some space. Kansas found a little bit of space with their running backs last week, and we're able to get them out in space. So once he's out there, have a game. And then from there, I mean, it's really up to that wide receiving core. I mean, Braden Johnson, he's back this week. Bryson Green had a phenomenal game last week. John Paul Richardson. I think we read a report before we came on that Jaden Bray is going to be out again this week. And so I'm looking for those guys to have a day. And then those backup running backs. I mean, just between Nixon, Ollie Gordon, DeAndre Jackson's got a little bit of play this year. I know that he was on Twitter, I think, saying things like, let me play. But, I mean, he's finally cleared. So, I mean, he's a guy that everybody's kind of been, ready to see. And so we'll see kind of where he goes with that. But, I mean, they are deep at running back, but those receivers are really going to have to step up today as well.
John Paul Richardson he's really been a phenomenal guy this year. He's come up and he's played very well for us. Do you what are your thoughts on him in general, and how do you expect him to be in today's game?
He just does what you need him to do. I mean, if you need a first down, he sets at the sticks and takes the first down. He'll take the hits that you need him to take. And so he's a guy that you can set him up pretty much anywhere, and he's willing to go out there and stick his neck out and try to make the play. We've seen him make excellent plays. I mean, he's very athletic. He's a very athletic kid, and so when you can throw the ball up to somebody and have him go up and get it, and you can kind of they've lined him up in that slot position where he's kind of lined up with linebackers. And so linebackers, although they're big, tough, scary, running across the middle, they're not the sprinters that you want them to be. And so when you can get a receiver versus a linebacker, those linebackers can't jump as high as most receivers, and they can't run with them either. And so he's a guy that that's where he sort of excels.
What do you expect to see out of Brendan Presley today? Do you think that we're going to see a lot of him on offense, or mainly just keep him to the special teams returning?
I mean, we'll see him on offense. We'll see him out there. They'll get the ball to him in some screen passes. The biggest thing for Brendan Presley is that he's just so small. I mean, he's just a small guy. Yeah. And so when he catches the passes, I mean, he just can't make anything happen. It's in that short yardage gains where they try to get the ball to him, and you almost want to get a bigger guy the ball so that they can maybe fall forward. Brendan Presley, I mean, when he gets hit, it looks like a car crash. I mean, it looks like a car is hit. If you've ever hit an animal before, that's what it looks like. Just because he's so small, and he gets up from it. It's not a hard hit, but he's just a small guy. So when you hit him, I mean, he just bounces off like a pinball. And so we'll see. I mean, I think he'll be getting the ball this this week, and he'll be out there. He'll be a part of the offense. I think he'll be more of the same of what he's been this year. I mean, just kind of a guy that when you need to get somebody the ball that's fast and can makes things happen out in space, he's your guy.
Establishing the run game for OSU specifically has been highly talked about, and obviously it's one of those things that can increase our time of possession, slow down the game, and really let us get in control. How much run game, I guess, rushing, do you think we're going to see today? Do you think we're going to be heavy on the run game, or do you think we're going to side by the passing for right now?
I mean, OSU's been pretty balanced this year. They've done a good job of trying to mix it up as far as just what happens per possession. Maybe the yardage doesn't show that as far as rushing versus passing, but they at least try to mix it up a little bit to try to set it up. And nobody loves a draw like Mike Gundy loves a draw. I mean, that guy loves QB draws. He loves running back draws. If he could draw it to the receiver, maybe Brendan Presley can come out there on a draw, and we can see something happen there. But we'll see a lot of the running game, and really from a guy that we've seen step up over the past couple of weeks, we've seen Jake Schultz, who's I think is a sophomore or junior this year. We've seen him step up in that H-back, cowboy back position, and sort of take over there and be able to block in front. And so when you have him blocking out in front, and a guy that likes to stick his nose in places, again, you talk about Mason Cobb, Jake Schultz is that guy on offense. When you have that, you can feel pretty good about your running game.
Positionally, where do you think our strongest part of the offense is right now?
Right now, at quarterback. I mean, it just really is. I mean, our receivers are good this year, but we don't have the Tay Martin. We don't have the James Washington, the Justin Blackmans, the Des Bryants, or the Rashawn Woods. We don't have any of those guys this year. Running back wise, I think we have a great committee of running backs, a solid committee of running backs. I don't think that they're where they should be. I think the expectations have sort of waned a little bit. And so, Dominic Richardson, he's a guy that, in short yardage gains, he's really exciting. We got to see him on a play on the goal line last week. I mean, he drove the pile before being picked up and carried into the end zone. But I mean, he drove a pile 3 yards before finally somebody came and tried to help him. Just picked him up and dropped him in the end zone. And so, he's a powerful guy, but I don't think that, the expectations that he has are there either. And then on the offensive line, I think that they're better than they have been in the past few years, but yeah, they're not. They're just still not strong. There's a lot of stuff that they need to work on. And so I would say where we hang our hat on is that quarterback position. And Spencer Sanders has done a great job this year of managing games. He's done a great job of when we needed him to get a first down, he gets the first down. When you need him to make a play, he knows where that play needs to be made. And we saw that growth a little bit last year in the Fiesta Bowl. We saw a little bit of that growth happen where he basically brings back OSU against Notre Dame. He brings them back in the game, and when he absolutely needs to make a play, he's setting up the safety with his eyes and making the safety sort of set up over here, and then he throws it right here. And so when you can have that kind of play from your quarterback, that's huge. We've seen him grow for 4 years now and be that guy. And so now he's finally kind of come into that potential that we've all kind of been waiting for him to step into.
I know I've talked about this with you before, with other people as well. Just the pressure that Spencer Sanders is under right now. And obviously there's concerns about, I believe it was his shoulder that's under watch right now for an injury. Do you think that he is capable of handling a game like this with both of us ranked undefeated, as well as being injured, and as well just being on a road game? Like, all those are very tough things to get through.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be tough. We'll see how he handles it. It's going to be a physical game. I'm sure Mike Gundy and the coaching staff are trying to drop Casey Dunn, trying to drop something to where he doesn't put himself in danger as much. And probably telling him a little bit this week, hey, maybe slide a little bit earlier so that you can keep your head about you.
Yeah. Final question: What's the one thing you want to see out of the offense today?
Score. Just score a bunch. Go out there and put the ball in the end zone. I mean, if you got to go on a long drive, don't feel like you have to rush it. Go out there, put the ball where you need to put it, and just keep ahead of the chains.
Okay, really quick, just a fun question. Do you think we'll see a 2-point conversion out of OSU today? We saw one last week.
I don't think so.
Okay.
I don't think, not this week. I think they'll be far enough ahead that they won't have to.
Okay, good. Well, that's going to do it for our offensive segment. Thank you guys so much for continuing to tune into the pregame show. We're going to send it to break, but when we get back, we're going to have some banger busts and some fun questions to talk about, so be sure to come back for that.
My name is James Remedi. Fired Up Stilly is the name of the business, and I'm one of the owners. We all three met, the three owners, working as employees at a similar place like this. What I hope for is for everybody to feel welcome, like family. Not only do I want students to feel welcome to come here and study and use our free Wi-Fi, but also I want adults and families to be able to come in. We've built a connection with a lot of people, and Stillwater's a big community, so we just want to invite everybody to be able to eventually make their way through our doors. Well, definitely the teas, I would say. Most people fall in love with them. They just got a great amount of energy, gets you going through your day, and it just kickstarts you to get everything you need to done. For myself, it would just have to be, being the owner, owning something that, is able to impact other people's lives, and, the way we can affect our community is something that I really have always wanted to do. We love our clients and our customers that come through every day, and we enjoy getting to know them.
Hi, I'm Shauna here at Where the Buffalo Roam in beautiful downtown Pawnee, Oklahoma. We have a lot of beautiful and unique items for sale in the store, but our number one items are Navajo jewelry, Pendleton blankets, and Consuela. It's a great place to shop, a beautiful downtown, so come see us in Pawnee, Oklahoma.
Welcome back to the final segment of the pregame show. We got some banger busts, but before we get into that, Tanner, why don't you give us one last update?
So, in a very controversial play that just happened, Iowa State football, they fumbled it. Quarterback got hit. He fumbled it. Texas got it under review, and Texas has it. Now on third down, it's very close. But as long as Texas can just hold on to it, not make any big mistakes, they can win the game for the first time in 4 years.
Yeah, Tanner's our Iowa guy.
Yeah, I know.
He's from out there, so he's been watching this game real closely today. What else do we got around the country?
Around the league, it's pretty calm for right now. Penn State's still down on Michigan. Ole Miss is up, but not by too much, which is kind of a bit of a surprise out here. Kansas basically done for it at this point. And then
Kansas making a little bit of a push there.
Yeah, making a little bit of a push, but I don't think it's not enough to come back. You never know, though. Miami, easy win right now against Virginia Tech, as it seems.
Coastal Carolina's down bad, 49-21 to Old Dominion. Oof.
Yeah, that is going to be a rough game for them.
Oh, Miami, Virginia Tech. That looks 27. Miami's up. That looks like it'll be a good game.
Yeah, Colorado's up. Let's see if they can get a win this season. That'll be hopefully see if they can win. If they can, that'll be good for their program. But so it's been a rough year.
All right, we'll let you off here so you can watch the rest of your game. Your Iowa State Cyclones. We'll see how they can get it. Oh,
yeah.
Well.
Okay.
Rip.
Oh no. Okay, some banger busts. You ready?
Let's do it.
All right,
let's do
it. Tanner, even if you want to, you can go ahead and
I gotta find my foam finger. Hold on.
I think we might have
my Go State over here.
Yeah. I think my first thing right now is Spencer Sanders, I think, throws for 300 yards.
You think he will?
I think he will.
What did he throw for last week?
I don't think it was 300. I think I have it right here.
Yeah. I mean, if you looked at it last, Texas Tech threw for more yards than we did last week.
Sorry?
Texas Tech threw for more yards than we did last week.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Yes.
That is true.
Yeah.
He's averaging 327
total yards per game, 278 passing. Yeah.
Yeah, I think I'll go ahead and I'll say bang on that one. I'll bang that one. That's a good guess. I'd say he probably hits 300 this week. What do you think?
Well, my only concern is is it his throwing shoulder that's hurt, or is it?
I have no idea.
So
I don't even know if he's hurt. Tanner, you might look for some updates real quick and just see
let's
if we have something. But I don't know. I don't know what's being said or anything. I mean, it was just a rumor. 8 o'clock hour rolled around. Everybody woke up from their slumber, and all of a sudden it was, well, Spencer Sanders might be hurt. He might not play this game. And everybody's like, okay, well, we need some updates. So, I mean, it looked like people were saying he's throwing, he's going through drills and everything. But, I mean, we'll see kind of where they go. But
oh my gosh, people are saying he's going through a wide receiver drill right now and had a one-handed catch. Maybe he should be playing receiver. I don't think we need to be testing.
I mean, that's Marshall Scott. I mean, that's former O'Collie right there. I mean, Marshall Scott coming in and letting us know a little bit about what's going on in the game. Yeah, so we'll see. I think he. I'm not really sure. I think I'm trying. Pistols Firing Blog, I think is what Marshall works for.
Looks like Eli Russ is back for us. So
okay,
that'll be good for us. There's a lot of high snaps last week. So I think it'll be better for Spencer to get back into with his normal man under center.
Yeah. Okay.
Back to the question though. If his shoulder is not hurt magically, we're good to go. I'm gonna say bang. But with unhealthy one, questionable. But either way, I think that he's capable of doing it in today's game.
Yeah.
Okay. Landon, you kick us off with this one. Dominic Richardson gets plus 65 rushing yards today.
Plus 65. I will go ahead and say bang to that. I think he's one that this is a game that he did really well in last year. He was able to get that one-on-one battle and run through people. I mean, I'd say he probably pushes close to 90 this game.
Yeah, he got 67 last week, 73 against Baylor. His all-time high was 131 against ASU. I think that if we get that run game going, I think that he's definitely capable of it. Tanner, do you want to say anything about the plus 65 for Dominic Richardson today?
I think if our O-line can get him some good gaps, I think we can do it. I think it might be a little bit of a problem, though, but, I mean, he's been on and off this season with what he's been able to do. So I think if he can get some good gaps and get some breakthrough runs, then I think that'll be an easy success. But it's all dependent on that O-line getting him that breathing room that he didn't get last week.
Okay.
Yeah.
Question 2 for me. Sanders gives up 2 or more interceptions. What are your thoughts?
2 or more, I don't think so. I think he might have 1 this game.
He has only 2 this season.
Yeah, but it's picked up since we've been in Big 12. So, I think he'll at least have 1, 2 or more. I don't know. I don't think so. Yeah, okay. I'll bust on that one.
I say he might. I think 2 or more. I'll say big. Just if you looked at it last game, he threw it some pretty dicey situations. And some of them that almost were interceptions, luckily were out of bounds. So he got lucky on some plays. He's been throwing it a lot more riskier, especially last week. With his shoulder, if it acts up in a play, you never know. So
it's all about the shoulder today.
I think it is. I think that will be a big part of what happens. So I say bang.
Okay.
You gotta give him a go gadget shoulder. For those, is anybody? I don't know. If obviously nobody can tell me right now, but Inspector Gadget, is that y'all big Inspector Gadget?
Me.
Oh man, I am washed.
Okay. Did I already ask? You asked this one. Okay, 300 passing yards. We said bang and bang for you as well. I'm gonna say bang too. My last question is: Will we see Gunnar Gundy in today's game?
I mean, I don't think so. But that's me saying that, barring any injuries. And, if we go out there and go out against go against TCU and score 50 points and beat them by 60, we might see them. But I don't see that happening. I see us sticking with Spencer Sanders and just making some things happen.
I think Sanders saying this is a game that we need to win. Because I think it will come down to us and TCU in the championship game as it looks right now. So I think if we really want to win and get us a solid seeding in the Big 12, we need to keep Sanders in. We can't let Gundy in. Gundy has experience, but it isn't as good as an opponent as a Big 12 opponent. So I think we need to keep Sanders in and keep that consistency with our receivers, O-line, just keep everything consistent and that we know can win games.
I prefer to not see him just because I want to have a healthy Spencer Sanders. I do think that there's possibility, especially with this trend they have of taking out all these quarterbacks. But yeah, God forbid that happens to us because we do not need a seriously hurt Spencer Sanders. So I'm gonna say bust as well, but I'm kind of holding my breath. So yeah, that's my thoughts on that. I do trust Gunner. We talked about this obviously earlier, but I just think that he's just the reliable one for us.
Yeah, and like I say, I mean, you trust Gunny to come in and manage the game.
Yeah.
I don't trust him to throw the ball 60 yards down the field or do any read options or anything like that. But if you just need somebody to come in and be like, hey, throw the ball where you need to throw it, get the pass, control the offense and manage the offense, he's definitely a good game manager.
Yeah. Okay, so we got a couple minutes left. Let's go into some score predictions. What are your thoughts?
I mean, I think this is going to be a relatively high-scoring game. I'd say, you get plus 25. That's a high-scoring game.
Mm-hmm.
I think OSU, pushes over that 40 mark today. I think they get up to 45. I think TCU finally gets the challenge that they've been kind of looking for, and I don't think they meet that challenge. And so I have TCU 28, OSU at 45, 45-28 for me. And I think OSU kind of runs away with this one.
Okay, we're on different wavelengths right now.
It seems like it. I've talked. We had the poke report that came on before, and everybody had the game within 5 points. I think somebody had it within 3. We had the writers' room with Tessa Durrell on Wednesday. She comes in and says, "Hey, I think it's gonna be 3-point game." I mean, I think maybe Adam Engel, or the editor in chief. I think he maybe had it. TCU winning by 4.
One of them, yeah, I think one of them definitely.
Yeah, so I mean, everybody's kind of on the fence about TCU. I'm not afraid of TCU. I'm not as worried as I have been in the past about TCU. I'm not as worried as I was last week going into Texas Tech. I'm more prepared for OSU to come in here and play ball this week.
I'm a little bit more conservative this week. I'm higher general numbers, but I'm keeping it a closer game just because you don't know what's going to happen. But then again, my score predictions have pretty much been wrong every single episode and also just not very close. So I'm going to say 38-35 OSU. I do think that it'll come down to a field goal just because there's a lot going into this game and just like a lot of extra stuff that we need to worry about. But I do think that OSU is going to come out on top.
Yeah.
I don't think it's going to be a loss for us today.
Yeah.
Tanner, do you have anything to say?
I'll say 35-28. I'll say we pull it out, but I think it's gonna be a close one. We won't run away, but I think it'll be close.
Okay. Well, I guess we'll see here pretty soon. Yeah. It's coming up. Game time's coming in.
We got like 3 minutes till kickoff, but really, really quick before we just wrap everything up here, we got Texas next weekend for homecoming. That's gonna be a really big game. Right, next weekend for homecoming?
Yes.
Right, okay. So that's going to be a really big game for us. I think just the fact that it's homecoming, and that's a big deal here at OSU. They're turning it around. I mean, they completely embarrassed OU with the shutout game, and today they're beating KU pretty bad. Or no, not KU, Iowa State, excuse me. What are your thoughts on that game? Are you excited for it? Are you a little worried?
Yeah, I'm excited. I'm ready for Texas to come in and kind of see what they can do. I mean, they played halfway decent today. We'll see what they can bring in next week.
Okay, well, that's going to do it for our show today. Landon, thank you so much for joining me. Everyone, thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it. We really appreciate it. But be sure to come back next week for our homecoming episode. It's going to be a big deal. And come to Stillwater if you guys can make it. It's always fun here in the homecoming. America's greatest. So be sure to come and tune in next week.
Bang!
Have a good one.
Hi, I'm Amanda Akins. I'm the owner of Hurricane Dixie Leather. I started this company back in about 2015, and I think that one of the most unique things about our store is that we're not just your everyday mom and pop leather shop. We use a lot of color and unique techniques that set us apart from others. We are a full Wrangler retailer. We have lots of Wrangler jeans and shirts. We've also got some other fun boutique clothes, and everything, all the leather goods in the store are made here in the shop. We also accept custom orders.